Okay, hey guys, can you hear me okay? I've got so many windows open here. Where's my chat window? Holler at me if you can hear me okay. Who've we got in? Tony, Mikey Dread, Mr. Fruity Cakes. Hey Jim, how's it going? Sweet. I'll wait for a few more people to jump in. Hey Zero. Oh, we got a conflict with LDO. You'll have to have two windows open. Awesome. Well, I'm hoping that your stream quality is okay. I'm trying to come at you at 720p 60 FPS, which is what we did in the last one. Hopefully you're getting a decent stream. What I might do in a minute is just jump in and do some warming up. It is set to a variable stream, so it should be okay. Mini-Me FPV says hi from Serbia. Hey, how you doing? How's the weather out there? Okay, so we got a couple of cool things to talk about today. We'll just wait for a few more people to join up, I think, and then we'll start talking. Yeah, bear with it. It might take a bit to settle down for everyone. Hey, Gigawatts. So we've got some kind of cool Liftoff news for any of you that might be interested, and that is that this particular version I'm running here is actually, it was a little closed beta that was running for the new physics model. So this is physics 3.0, which I am reliably told is what is going to be making its way into the final release version of Liftoff, or that's the idea. And I've probably had 3 or 4 days maybe messing around with this, and I will say it's a noticeable difference and it is an improvement. So far I'm really liking the way it feels. I think that the bit that I generally don't like in most simulators is the floatiness. I find they're just a little bit too floaty, and I end up having to do a lot of correction to get, again, I've talked about this in the previous streams and in acroschool stuff, about trying to get the quad in Liftoff to feel as close to your quad as possible in real life. And it was always that things just felt a little bit too floaty, and by default things felt way too powerful as well. So I've said it before, I'll say it again, you're going to have to defun Liftoff a little bit, take away some of that top end power, and you know, try and get it to feel like the power and weight of your real quad. And before I was adding a lot of weight and still feeling like it was too floaty. In this new physics version, physics 3.0, the drop and the kind of inertia in the quad as it's falling feels way more realistic. Like, it's a noticeable thing. Sometimes when you get these small physics tweaks, you don't necessarily notice the kind of the nuance in this stuff, but this is quite obvious. It's quite apparent after spending a whole bunch of time flying the old physics model and now the new one, which is good. It's taking it that little bit further away from the kind of game feel. So that is a good thing. So we're going to be flying in physics 3.0 here right now. So I'm just going to load something up. Let's just do a free flight. How are all my UK guys coping with this weather? Because it is crazy. I think in my little studio here it's like, I think it's somewhere around 33 degrees C with all my computers and screens running. It's just bonkers that we've had weather like this. It's crazy. In fact, I found out a lot of my family are in the Caribbean, in Trinidad actually. And I found out that today it's been hotter in the UK than it is in Trinidad and the Caribbean. So that's how crazy things are. Yeah, and has just been pointed out by Kim there. It's supposed to be 37 degrees tomorrow. That's crazy. That's kind of scary weather. I think the hottest I've ever been exposed to is in, I think it was Sardinia, I think was the hottest place I've ever been to, and that was just over 40 degrees. That was scary hot. So yeah, this is very unusual for the UK for us to have so much time without rain and such crazy heat, and now humidity as well has just come along with it. Okay, so let's go with I'm going to try Hanover because my graphics card is doing the obviously the graphics processing and handling the streaming. Let me know if this is a bit janky and I can go to Greenfield, which is a bit simpler. Okay, let's have a little fly and a warm up. Feels like it might be a bit framey here for me. I might have to go to the Greenfield instead, but give me some feedback in the stream and let me know how this is doing. Yeah, I think this might be a bit... Oh, smoothing out. Just do a little warm up here and then we'll start talking about stuff. This feels a bit choppy to me. A lot smoother than my PC, says Gigawatts. Well, if you guys are cool with it and this is decent enough for you on the stream, then I'll stick with it because it's a bit more of an interesting place to fly around than the Greenfield. Got to dive in the water just because I miss water. Can't even remember what it was like last time I felt rain on my face. Right. Okay, so one thing I should talk about is that at some point during this stream I will be asking you guys a question and I will be needing the first correct answer. The person who comes up with the first correct answer, Rob is going to be, he's the mod in the chat, he's going to be keeping an eye out for the first correct answer and letting me know. If you get that answer correctly before anyone else, and it's going to be a tough one, then I will be awarding a free Steam key for Liftoff. So you can have a free copy of Liftoff. That will be given away today on this stream, and that's actually courtesy of Rob Is Now. If you don't know who Rob is, you should go and check out his channel. He's in the chat right now. Say hello, Rob. He is Mr. Liftoff. He does a whole bunch of videos on all the updates as they come out. Great channel, and he got a bunch of keys to give away, one of which he's very kindly given to me to pass on to you lot. and he has 2 more keys which he will be giving away on his channel, so definitely worth a sub for my pal Rob. So a potential 3 chances to win keys. 1 today, and whenever Rob's going to do his giveaway stream. So I think what we'll start doing now is talking about the thing I wanted to talk about, which I put in the title, which is talking a little bit about power loops and how I set up for them. Power loops and pushbacks, which are 2 pretty big components of my flying, and probably a lot of people's flying these days. I think power loops is just one of those things that's really exciting to look at, and there's lots of ways to vary it and make really interesting transitions and do different things with. So everyone wants to learn how to power loop, but it's not the easiest thing to get right and to get smooth, and there are a few basic things to getting it really nice and smooth. So I'll go with some of the things I've seen when I've been helping people learn out in the field. I'll talk about some of the common mistakes I see people do and the various ways that I approach it. So the first thing to do is really to get yourself on a nice, straight, steady forward path, and to make sure you're settled. You don't want to constantly be adjusting your pitch and roll and entering into it messy, because if you're messy as you enter a power loop, you'll come out of it messy, or you'll have a lot of piloting and correction to do on the loop once you're in it and on the exit. So tidy in, tidy out is the first thing I'll say. So we're going to get ourselves nice and settled, and as I've talked about in previous streams, do less. Don't end up doing absolutely tons of corrections. The less you do, the smoother the quad will look, the smoother it will fly, the smoother it will track, provided you've tuned it nicely. Got your eye turn where you want it, so you can let go of the sticks and everything just stays where you want it to. So we're going to get ourselves on a nice straight track, and then the first thing we want to do, okay, let's talk about some of the mistakes I see. Obviously you want to pull back and you want to add a little bit of throttle, but what I see is this: people get to here and they just back off the throttle and then just pull back and level out. Now there's 2 things that's going to happen if you do that. I know if you see the sky, all of a sudden the sky is the scary part of acro flying, because you can't see the ground and you don't know if you're fast approaching it, and there's a small part of your brain that thinks every time you can't see the ground you're about to hit it. So that brings me on to the subject of commitment. When you enter a maneuver, and this goes back to me flying 3D helicopters back in the day, when you enter a maneuver, commit to the maneuver. Don't stop executing the maneuver halfway, because that's when things go wrong. So make sure you commit to what you're going to do. And in the case of power loops, we're going to be pulling in back elevator or back pitch on the right stick if you're mode 2. So we're going to pull back. We're going to add, you don't need to add a lot of power. You add enough power so that you start to climb. You've already got forward momentum. And as I said, when people make mistakes, what they do is they go up here and they back off and they go around and they've actually gone nowhere. So they've ended up with something that's more elliptical than it is a nice big circle, which is what you want a good loop to look like. You want it to be a nice round loop. Just like when you watch those guys flying their planes line of sight and they do these beautiful big circular loops, you want it to look like a nice big circle, or closer to that. And you won't get that if you stop committing to the power as you do the climb. Okay, so as we do the climb, we're going to keep the power in just that little bit longer, and now we've come back further back from where we started, so we know we're getting somewhere with our power loop. So I'm going to just pick that tree towards the end, and look how little I'm putting in of both power and pitch. And then I'll stop committing, and then when we come back down, you can see, there we go, we've done a nice fairly circular loop. Now it's still a little bit of a funny shape. We want to try and actually get a little more backwards projection. So when we do the loop this time, what you want to try and do is just commit a little more power and keep committed with your back pitch. So don't stop committing the amount. You don't need to pull more in. Don't panic and pull more back pitch. Just keep that amount in. And I'm going to stop just as I see the horizon. And now we've got a much nicer round shape. Do another one. And we end up with a nice round shape. Now, the other mistake I see is pulling in back pitch too quickly. If you pull in back pitch too quickly, you end up flattening out the quad. You end up killing the momentum that will give you a nice circular loop. And you end up falling into your own prop wash. Okay, so like this, if you pull too much back, now I'm just falling straight into my own prop wash. Now Liftoff won't really show what you're going to get out of your actual quad, but I guarantee you, if you keep pulling in too much back pitch just to try and flatten out, because you're like, I'm heading towards the ground, I'm scared, I'm just going to pull in loads of back pitch, you're going to lose momentum, you'll lose forward speed out of the manoeuvre, and you'll fall into your own prop wash, and you'll just have a big shaky mess at the top of it. So don't do this. Don't start flattening out like I'm flat and I'm just falling backwards. That's straight into prop wash. It's going to look horrible. So what we're going to do is keep the power in, and as soon as we're level, I'm going to be slow, and then I'm going to add power back in gently. And now I come out with forward momentum. I've avoided falling into my own prop wash, and I kept the quad moving. And what you've got externally looks much more like a big circle. Okay? Now, at this point, it's about bravery. Now, the best thing to do here is really to experiment by going nice and high. So lots of power on the climb, and you end up with a nice big circle. Lots of time to catch and reintroduce the throttle. But look at my pitch stick as I go round. See how consistent it is in its position? And again, I'm almost keeping that in one solid place. It's just the throttle that comes in more gently. Let's go up again. And you see the pitch stick's barely doing anything. It's just sitting in one spot. But it's the reintroduction of that throttle that matters. Don't jam it in. Don't flatten out the quad too much with pitch. And you'll have a nice smooth exit in the direction you came with lots of momentum. Now, the other thing here is to be aware of the quad's angle to your camera. The more aware you are of that, the more you can start to mess around with pushbacks. So obviously when I'm looking straight up at a vertical wall, like the one over here, the quad isn't flat as the camera is. So when I go straight up, the quad's not flat there. The quad is actually at, if you're freestyling like me, about 40 degrees more level to the ground than the camera is, and it's important to know that. So when I'm here, at that point, the quad, if I punch in the throttle, is actually going to push it back. So if I level up here and push, and now level off, can you see? I've actually ended up pushing the quad back, because that's the direction of thrust that the quad is at. So I'm straight up with the wall, push, and then level out, you can see the quad's pushed back. Now, it's important to do that as an exercise to get a feel for where you can push the quad, how far you can push the quad back and with how much throttle. So go up to a wall, level out the camera with parallel to the wall, and then add in some throttle and level. And then you can see how much pushback you get for the amount of throttle you put in. Now this is a really useful thing. If you're approaching something and you want to, say, transition that into a backflip and then change your direction, which looks really cool. Can't really do it there because of the low branches. Let's do this one again. So just make sure you don't enter this with too much speed, because otherwise you'll just climb into a power loop. So I'm going to pull back, about level, add throttle, and then level out the quad again. So you can just start by pushing forward, and you can get a gauge for that pushback. And then when that feels good, then just pull back on the back stick, and you end up with a nice pushback that you can then exit like the back end of a split S or a power loop, or you can roll out of it like that, which looks quite cool. After I finish talking about this, I'm going to get onto that question, by the way, guys, so be ready. Hope you're all paying attention. Okay, so same thing. We're going to go up, level up, push, and then I'm going to roll out of it. Now, you can kind of, what that will get you is not a power loop. It's like the start of a power loop, but then the top is very flat. So you don't gain so much altitude and you convert a lot of that momentum into a backwards thrust maneuver. But I'd love this as a maneuver. I throw this into loads of my freestyle. I can take a point like this and just change my direction instantly. And you can be almost at a hover. You can actually be at a hover to do this. So I could wash off my speed like so. Let's wash it off totally. So let's say I'm more or less stationary here. I can then, like that, pull up and back, and I've pushed the quad back and changed direction. It's a very, very cool maneuver. But the more speed you carry into it, the more aggressive you've got to flick the quad back to convert that into a backwards movement in the opposite direction. Otherwise you'll just end up climbing. If I go at this with loads of speed, as soon as I push back, I'll just end up a lot higher. So you can see we end up with lots more float time. If you want that to look more dramatic and sit lower, you don't want to be approaching it too fast and gaining too much speed. The faster you go in, the faster you're going to have to exit to keep that low. Like so. But these are all components of power loops and climbing maneuvers where you're changing momentum. So the other thing I wanted to talk about was entrance to practicing yaw spins, because we've talked on the channel a little bit about doing inverted yaw spins and various ways to enter them and exit them, and there's kind of a nicer way to do this. But before I do that, I said I'm going to talk to you guys about this Liftoff giveaway key, so let's do that, shall we? I'm going to land. Okay, this is not a question. You're not gonna know this, so there's a bit of guesswork involved, I'm afraid. But this is a nice, easy way to keep it a little bit fair. Let me just see that. Amen. How did you find your rates? By Licks. Licks, was that a question for me? So when I find my rates, I mean, this is something that I spent ages on. I'm always fine-tuning my rates. It's quite a long and complicated subject. It's a difficult one to probably... Maybe I might need to dedicate a whole video to just doing rates, but we'll get on to that. It's going to take me a little bit to talk about that, so let me do this competition first. So, for a free Liftoff key, here is the question. What transmitter am I flying with right now? What transmitter am I holding in my hands? You have no idea. Some of you know the kind of transmitters I fly with, but you might be wrong. I might have something new here. So I want you to give me the answer to that, and I need the full name of the transmitter. So the name and any extension to it, or maybe it's just the name, I don't know, but I want the full name. So Rob is now the mod, knows the answer so that I don't miss this. See, a lot of you know what I fly from stick cam videos, and a lot of you might know from my posting on Instagram and other places the kind of stuff that arrives at NJ Towers here. So I can see the X lights come out there a few times. Right, with one of you has got very close. But I did say I need the full name and extension. Still see names coming in. Keep guessing. I'm going to fly a bit. Rob can keep an eye on free surgery. Oh, I think I've just seen a correct answer. I think I've just seen a correct answer. And I think the person who got there first, I'm going to need... Rob is now has confirmed Tony got it first. Was it not 0? It is the Jumper T8 SG V2 Plus. That is what it is. And let me just hold that up for you so that you can see. I'm not lying. This is what I was flying. I will be doing a review on this guy, and it's a bizarre thing because it's got such tiny gimbals, but they are Hall sensor gimbals. This is the Plus model, which has the Hall sensors. The standard T8 SG, which is also a separate model. That is the non-plus version, so sadly that's why I couldn't give that to the person who did actually come up with the Jumper T8 SG. So you did come up with it first, but it wasn't the Plus. I needed the full extension. So I'm pretty sure... is it Tony got it first? Is it Tony? Can I confirm? Rob, can I have a confirmation of who I'm congratulating? He did indeed. Tony, right. Tony, congrats. You've won a Liftoff key. So what I'd like you to do, if you go to the About section of my YouTube page, you can contact me directly. So if you drop me a mail via that, I shall send you over a key so that you can get into Liftoff. And as I said, guys, there's 2 more keys up for grabs over on Rob's channel. Rob is now, so go and sub to him, and in the next few days you'll have a chance to win out of those 2 other keys that are available. So let's talk about rates, because that's quite an interesting topic, and I've noticed it getting talked about a lot more recently, which is a really good thing, because I think your rates are almost more important than your PID tune, just because the PID tune of Betaflight, the stock envelope, is so big and it's so good. It's something that I think you should put more of your attention towards, and it will help with that consistency thing that we've talked about before. So in terms of how I find my rates, the first thing I do is I look for getting an endpoint that I'm comfortable with, and the endpoint is for me the super rate, basically the point of maximum stick deflection. So when I've got that stick all the way over. Wow, I've just decked my quad. When I've got the stick all the way over, the speed of rotation, that is what I'm trying to get. Now, for me personally, that is 1,000 degrees per second is roughly where I'm trying to get all the time. That feels good to me. Anything above that just feels too ballistic and too fast and doesn't work for the way I freestyle. If you see any of my freestyle vids, that's what I'm at. And it always surprises me when people say they expect my rates to be really high and they're not. So yeah, 1,000 degrees per second at the end. At that point, I'm looking for mid-stick information and center stick feel. I don't want the center stick to be crazy soft. I like it to feel comfortable and nice so the small corrections don't come out as jittery. But I need mid-stick information. The only way to get good mid-stick information and a good mid-stick feel is to have it more linear and not to have such an aggressive curve. So if you go for an RC rate that is just 1.0 and a high super rate of say 1400 degrees per second, you're going to have quite a big expo, quite a big curve in there. And I always find that gives me very, very bizarre information in the mid-stick, and a lot of my freestyle lives in the mid-stick. When I'm doing rolls, for instance, I'll tend to start them fast and I'll finish off at a more medium or slow speed. I very rarely do the whole kind of fast just snap thing. I know that's more akin to pilots like Mr. Steele, and I'm more down the kind of the schizo route of things. I like things to be nice and slow and flowy. So I find 1,000 degrees is absolutely fine. And don't forget, you're doubling up when you start putting 2 1,000 degree per second axes like pitch and roll into combinations. So if you go into the corner, you end up with ballistic speed. Yeah. So there's plenty of ways to get things to look exciting and fast without having to go with crazy endpoints. So 1000 degrees per second at the end, and then in terms of mid-stick, I just, that mid-stick information, that mid-stick feel, I just take my time and work up the RC rate until I start to feel like that mid-stick is feeling consistent and good. However, when you start raising your RC rate, which will flatten out the curve and give you that mid-stick information, your super rate will obviously, your endpoint will start to go up as well. So if I raise my RC rate to 1.1, start to flatten out that curve, I then need to reduce my super rate to make sure I get back to 1000 degrees at the end of the stick. I always want 1000 degrees at the end of the stick. So that's what you're trying to do to get the rate feel that you want, and you just need to experiment with that. Like, do it. Just go out with your quad, just do a load of rolls and a load of flips until you feel that end point feels really nice in terms of rotation and in terms of flip, and then stick with it. Be consistent, and then start messing around with your RC rate and get that mid stick to feel nice, to where this kind of flying, where you're flying around smoothly, feels really good and comfortable, and it looks smooth and it feels like you have nice control just past center stick for this kind of flying. And then at mid stick you have nice information there. It doesn't feel too erratic. The more of a curve you've got in there, the more weird that's going to feel. That's actually quite an interesting maneuver. I don't know if you guys, I don't think how many of my videos have actually got any wall riding in it. But when you do wall riding, because people get scared of getting close to objects. If you saw my last video with the, where I flew around those big chimneys and getting close to them, it's all really about the approach and the setup of getting close to an object like a wall or a tower. It's all in the approach. The same with just about all freestyle maneuvers. If your approach is good and your setup's good, the actual part of the actual maneuver execution is then pretty easy to do. With wall riding like this, what you need to do is actually head like a little bit in towards the wall, because if you just go alongside it, it's the same with diving as well. If you just go alongside it and go sideways, you're immediately putting the thrust facing away from the object you're trying to get close to, which will obviously stop you getting close to it. It's exactly the same with diving. You actually need to be heading towards the object, and then as you flatten off parallel to it with your props facing against it, just be ready on throttle to push yourself away from it. You know, it's the same with when I do power loops, or if I do a split S over a tree. If I'm popping too far away from the tree, I just pull the power in to get a bit closer to it. You know, use a bit of throttle at the top, it won't matter, but it will pull you a little bit closer to the tree. It's the same with wall riding. If you want to get nice and close to a wall, I'll start off going towards the wall, bank, and then use a little bit of throttle to keep yourself away from it if you feel like you're getting too close. Like that. And if I was diving something, it would be the same. I'd come in towards it and just use throttle to manage how close it gets to me once I'm actually doing the dive. Like so. Okay, bear with me, I'm just going to check some chat, land for a minute, give my brain a rest. Let me just see what Mod Rob is saying. Rob's just advised me of some nice buildings to dive, so I could go and show you that. How do you put stick positions on the screen? Show the joystick overlay on the main menu. Was it? I think it when you're actually in Liftoff, isn't it M? No, it's not. I thought there was a button to bring the stick overlay on and off in Liftoff. I might be wrong. I think Rob will know the answer. Droning on. Hey Ash, how you doing, man? I never fly around smoothly. I want to, but it's always as if I'm drunk. Liftoff just doesn't feel real to me. To be honest with you, Ash, you've just got to put a bit of time in with these sims to get them to feel closer. I'll say this now, this new version of the Physics 3.0, much better. As I said, the falling side of it feels considerably better, and the weight of the quad's kind of there, and the cornering's good. It all sort of feels the way it should now, but I have spent a lot of time messing around with all the different things. Okay, so some trick variations that we could do with some of the stuff we've talked about today. So just to show you a couple of transitions I like doing that are in loads of my videos. So power loop at the top, plenty of time, do a roll, stabilize, and then come out of it. Let's do another one of those. And it's a clean roll, no influence of yaw in that. Going up, you could do 2 even, plenty of time. As long as you pop nice and hard, those are quite cool. The other one is to pull and then, whoa, that was close. Right, was to push up into the power loop and then immediately go into a front flip. So that will bring you out upside down, traveling backwards, or backwards from the direction of approach, but forwards. And then you can roll out of it. So let's do another one of those. That was a bit slow, messed up on the stick. And how hard you pop will determine how high you're going to go. If you want to do a scary low one, like that, then you have to move pretty quick to get yourself rolled out of it. So that's quite a nice one. You can also do that at the end of a power loop. So you can go up in a nice big power loop and then add a back flip, even another one. That looks quite cool. That's not particularly difficult. Just go up, get to the apex and do your first one. And again, you need to be comfortable with your rates, guys. You need to know, you need to have the muscle memory already there for your back flip to know how long to hold back and time your back flip to make sure that you can do one of those, because the last thing you want to do is be on the falling side of a power loop doing a back flip and you've mistimed it and you end up at some bizarre angle. So that's quite a nice one. You can also do a yaw spin if you like. A little bit untidy. Let's do another one. That works fine. Something I'll say they still haven't quite fixed in Liftoff for me is the fact that you can inverted yaw spin at full speed and it doesn't pull you towards the ground. Let's get the quad flat before I do that so I can show you a better idea. Yeah, I shouldn't be able to do that much yawing and still have that much float at the end of it, but hey, kind of everything. It's doing pretty well on the physics front, I think. If there are any other transitions that you've seen in my videos that you want to know about, let me know. Let's answer a few questions. I've got another one I can show you. Okay, how to determine the distance when diving a chimney. I went above it and started the dive, almost got straight into it. So it's the same as I was talking about with the wall riding. You want to kind of push towards the thing that you'll be heading towards the thing that you're diving. It's all in the setup really. So if I'm going to dive something like a tree or a tower, something nice and tall, It's all about this part, the approach. So there I was, you know, too far back to make that a meaningful dive. So this is the portion of the transition you want to set up. That's a little better. So that's the bit, if I was trying to work on that, I'd be practicing that a lot, the actual setup. And as I said, what you're diving, adding thrust will pull you away from it. So just remember your bail maneuver, your exit maneuver from things when they go wrong. And it's always good to have an exit maneuver. If you're diving something or wall riding, is just to add a little bit of thrust. Just add a little bit of throttle and it'll pop you away from the thing you're diving or the thing you're trying to do a wall ride on. That will just get you away from it. So it's the approach you want to practice. So once I've got that, a little bit of throttle, just I was diving something very small, so there wasn't much to do there. But I'll pop and then add a bit of throttle if I'm getting a bit close and then pull away. Oh, there's the building Rob was telling me about. I got it, Rob. Let's go over to that thing. So yeah, I'd be heading towards it with forward speed, roll over, and then keep my camera forward, add a bit of throttle, and turn into it. Let's do another one. So same thing, heading towards it, and then we can get nice and close and just add throttle if I need it, and then however you're going to bail from it, you can choose. How's the frame rate, guys? It's a little bit janky here for me, but maybe you're getting it smooth. So here, I'm over tilting just to try and get myself a little bit further forwards. Let's go again. So a little bit of forward speed. Oh, this will look nice. There we go. And we'll do one of those. And back up. And then back the way we came. Nice. If only I had a building like that, I'd be allowed to do this stuff around, eh? The video I could make. I'd be so happy. But yeah, basically with the dive, you just want to be heading towards the thing that you want to dive. Then turn around and just get yourself nice and close to it. And if things go wrong, as I said, just push throttle to get away from it. Let's go up. So a little bit of forward speed. That's not bad. And then if I'm getting too close, I'll just pull the throttle and pitch to get away from it. Oh, abort. Ah, there's the ground. Yeah, that's quite a nice thing to do as well. I seem to be able to do this on my real quad, but I kind of suck at it a little bit in the sim. But it's to actually get under the branches a little bit, like so, and then no, just hit the ground on this. Let me find something a bit taller. Let's try that. But yeah, like this, and then yeah, it just doesn't work on this. This is where the inertia physics isn't quite the same as on my quad. That's sort of it. There's a bunch in my video anyway, where you go up to something, stop, and then push yourself backwards. So you basically bring the quad to a stop, and then pushing yourself backwards like that. Maybe I need a bit more up tilt. 40. Let's go with 40 degrees. Sort of, yeah. Not everything feels the same as my quad, sadly, but where was that building we were playing around? Okay, man, it is hot. Okay, let's stop, answer a few more questions. Mikey Dread, knife edge rewinds. Yep, they're fun. There's a couple of things that I quite like. So there's the this is a fun one to do. The quad makes an awesome noise when you do this with your real one. So you're basically doing a yaw spin, but obviously to keep yourself level, you want to put roll in with pretty much equal amounts. Ooh, let's get some forward momentum going, like so. So I'm yawing to the right there, and then adding in an equal amount of roll with it to make sure the quad stays level, and you get this kind of forward moving flat spin, which looks quite cool. Again, a little bit different feeling to my quad, and I'm using these tiny gimbals which feel a bit different, but yeah, that's kind of the thing you're doing. So there's that. And then there's the other thing which I quite like doing, which is to take a corner. So if we're doing a left hand corner, and then I push in the opposite direction. Let's find some space without a million trees in it. So I think you see me do a few of these already. Let's try a few more. There we go. So the best thing to do, some of these are really, my brain just melts when I try and describe what I'm doing with my fingers. So if I go quiet, just watch what I'm doing with the sticks. Well, not particularly tidy. There we go. And then what else have we got that's interesting? This one where we follow the tree around, that's quite good fun. So here I'm going up, rolling, following the tree, and then rolling out of it. This works better with a little bit of speed and looks quite good. It's quite scary with your real quad because there isn't much time to make your corrections. And it really has to be a muscle memory thing, so there we go, that was a nice one. And if you continue the yaw round, then you can exit with speed. If you fall short on the yaw, then you can stop and go back the other way. Like so. There we go. Try that again. Let's do one more. Go past this tree. There we go. A bit of tree surgery at the end too. And this one is like half. I'm doing a half yaw, half roll to exit. So we go up, back flip, half roll, half yaw, and out in the direction of travel. Do a few of these. There we go. You're starting off with an inverted yaw spin, and then you're finishing the rest of it with a roll. And those two things combined get you 180 degrees each. Which gets you... Oh, is that right? Yeah, so you end up coming out the way you started. So no, you do the full... Yeah, so you end up with the full 360 to come around and go out the way you came. And it looks quite nice because it kind of doesn't look like a roll, doesn't look like a yaw spin. It's a nice mixture of the two. So yeah, we've got some good information there. Have a mess around with the Powerloop stuff, and just start adding in extra tricks to stuff as you get more comfortable with doing stuff. As soon as you're getting bored, as soon as you can hold a conversation whilst you're doing a maneuver with someone, then you know it well enough, and your muscles doing the work, and you're not thinking anymore. Then start adding, start spicing it up. Add a roll at the top of a loop, or you know. Like we did earlier, where we did the pushback, and then we converted that into a backflip and then a half roll to exit. Stuff like that. Just the world is your oyster in terms of transitions and mixing maneuvers up together. Okay, let's answer some questions. What else have we got? Steam. How to maintain altitude when flying backwards in a straight line. It's a lot of guesswork, I'm afraid. The easy thing it just takes practice. One way that I started doing this was actually doing it line of sight and just trying to take a mental note of where the stick positions were. I know that sounds kind of crazy, but it did sort of work. I can't do it very well in the sim for some reason. My backward stuff is not nearly as confident as it is with my actual quads. But the way to do it is, it helps if you've got something taller than you, because then you can use pitch to it's basically pitch that I use to regulate the height. I know roughly just below center stick, or from listening to the motors, where my throttle position needs to be off the ground. To be in forward flight, I know I'm going to stay up. And you can hear in the motors roughly where that is. But in terms of the rest of it, maintaining altitude, like if we start to travel backwards, it's then pitch. So if I push forward, I'm going to level up a bit, pull back a bit, I'm going to bit more speed. Practice it slowly like that until it starts to feel good. When it comes to maneuvers like this, which you've seen me do a whole bunch in my flight videos, stuff like that, you just try it high up until you start to get a feel for how much power and forward pressure are put into that reverse loop. Some of this stuff you've just got to go for, I'm afraid. But yeah. Okay, that was a good question. Mikey Dread, I'm a big fan of off-axis rolls and flips. Yeah, totally. They just look, anything that looks a bit different and has a nice flow to it is just awesome. So worth doing. Just experimenting with stuff like that. Just Noxy says, Liftoff always feels like it's having moon gravity. Is this fixed or just having wrong settings? Right, this is what I was talking about earlier with Physics 3.0 in Liftoff. The drop feels much better. It's more really like an inertia thing. Like, I feel I have to jam in the throttle a lot closer to what I would do on my real quad. Whereas before, yeah, you'd pop up, you'd let go, and it would just float forever. Whereas now things feel like, yeah, it feels like the inertia's right. I mean, it's still not 100%, but it's a marked improvement. I've been impressed with this. Like, I can do manoeuvres that I do on my real quad feeling a lot more like they should in here. Ash says, NJ, just an idea in your next video. How about allowing others to join the session so they can join you and try copy your moves? Would be good to watch. Yeah, maybe we'll do that. Maybe we'll do a practical test and we'll get a bunch of you in. Maybe I think you can have 5 or so. We can have a fly around. But then the pressure's on because I'm going to switch my stream camera to all your cameras, and we can we can see how you're getting on. So if you're feeling brave, let me know, and I'll get some of you guys in. We'll start messing around with that. That sounds good. Good idea, Ash. Can you talk about how to do the rewind stuff? So the rewind stuff, yeah, this is where I find there's a bit more of a disconnection between my quad and how the rewind stuff works and Liftoff. I'm not sure why that is. Because the rest of it's starting to feel more consistent, but I don't know why. I can't quite get. Maybe it's something in the setup. I'll have to still play with the settings a little bit. Might be something in the weight of the quad that I'm not quite getting right. But the rewind stuff, or that really the kind of change of momentum stuff, is I've always got in my head an idea of the quad relevant to the camera angle. That's kind of the best way I can think of describing it. So I know, as I talked about earlier, when I pull back, like here, I know that the quad, if I level out, I didn't just fall backwards because the quad wasn't level. the quad's there, the quad is still up a bit. So I'm actually sustaining a fairly horizontal pushback. And having that image in your head of where thrust is being pushed relative to what you're seeing is something that you need to kind of visualize when you start messing around with more strange maneuvers like the rewind stuff. And those pushbacks are a great place to start. So yeah, coming up, getting yourself to a blind point, pushing back, and then regaining control, rolling out of it. That's a really, really good place to start, because you start to get an idea of what angle you're being pushed at when you're pointing at the sky. It's especially important in this maneuver where I do the rainbow and then I come back the way I came. Again, feels a bit floaty compared to the normal one. That's not going to work, is it? Yeah, because I kind of end up static, whereas normally I'll be heading back with a bit more velocity. Yeah, my muscle memory on my quad tells me I'd be coming back down out the other side of that a little bit faster. It's a bit floaty here. But yeah, stuff like that where you think you're going to go over it. That was better. So what I'm doing there is kind of... Actually, let me show you. I can switch camera view here. Let me just bring you up to a place where you can see the quad. Which one have I got? There we go. So you can see me. If I've got my little quad here. When I'm going... Let me try and explain this. So when I'm going over the tree, the point at which I'm vertical and looking down at the quad, you can see the actual angle. You can see the angle of the camera's pointing down, but the angle of the quad is different. Now what I do is I over-rotate till I can see the horizon just, and then I apply thrust. And what this does is bring me back the way I came, and then I rotate out of it and come down. So I'm going up, there's my tree, going up over it, until I'm, and normally you could just float over the top of it like this, but what I'm doing is I'm accelerating the forward pitch until I get to here, then I'm adding thrust, and that's bringing me back the way I came. So I'm rewinding the maneuver, and then you're in kind of the downward part of just a power loop. So up, over rotating, at this point I'm then coming back. As I said, on my quad, that my muscle memory, that works great, and there's a fair few of my videos where I do that maneuver and you can see how that works. In Liftoff it's sort of ending up being a little bit floaty for some reason, but yeah, up, there we go. And yeah, you can do that as close as you dare to the tree. There you go. Oop, a bit too aggressive. Yeah, so there's another idea to practice anyway. But yeah, the transition stuff, I spend more time thinking about maneuvers when I'm driving. I'm just sat in the car and I think, well, maybe I could do this with this move. That's where I come up with things and working on a way to put 2 or 3 things together. And then yeah, the sim's a great place to start. It will not replace doing this out in the field with your own quad. Just do it high up, go way high up and practice the transition till it starts to feel right, and bring it down low after. Otherwise you're just going to go through loads of props. And the lower you do stuff to the ground at speed, especially those pushbacks, you can get that wrong. You just end up burying the camera and wrecking it. Notorious Meerkat, cool name, asks, floatiness, did you set the quad to the same weight as yours? No, I didn't. I try not to. I've tried doing direct copies of weights and PIDs and stuff into Liftoff, and the same with all the other simulators like Velocitron and Hot Props and all those, and I found none of it ever works out. You've got to do it by feel. You know your quad. I presume you will fly your quads lots. You know what feels right. So if the quad feels too floaty, try adding a bit of weight. If the quad feels too powerful, take some of the power out of it. You know, just try and get it to feel like your quad. Otherwise, it'll just feel like a game, and then it kind of defeats the point. Anything you learn in here isn't really necessarily going to translate in a huge way to your actual real life quad. So That's what I would do. Sorry, someone did ask me to flash up my settings, so let me do that because you could use that as a starting point. Sorry, I totally forgot to answer that. So that's my settings in terms of what I had to adjust to get it to feel right for me, or to feel close to my quad. The other thing is, don't always assume that 1,000 degrees per second on one quad is going to feel like 1,000 degrees per second on another. On a heavier quad that perhaps is at its power limit and unable to reach 1,000 degrees per second will never reach 1,000 degrees per second because it hasn't got the physical power to do it. So you'll often find you sometimes have to mess around with those endpoints to get the degrees per second to feel consistent across different quads. But yeah, just treat it as a feel thing. Everything you do here, just fly your own quad and think, this feels like my quad, it doesn't feel like my quad. Floating too much, add some weight. Yeah, same with the rate, same with the setting those and the super rate and the RC rate. Set those things up until they feel like yours. In terms of the PIDs, they're just the stock PIDs. I don't think I've messed around with those. I didn't feel like I needed to. So yeah, those are my settings. Cool. Have we got any other questions before I wrap this up? What else have I got here? What quad is this? Rob, do you remember what quad this is? I might have to... Let me go drone selection, that'll tell me. So I think it's the Liftoff. Yeah, there it is. This is the one I'm using. And this is a copy because I messed around with it in the workbench. And I added these like T-motor props, and I think they're the 5048 style gem fan tri-blades. And then the other bits I think are just cosmetic. I don't think they're going to matter too much. So yeah, just when you're in the workbench, you can do test flights, so you can keep checking how things feel differently in terms of the motors and the props and all that. But I wouldn't just assume that your gem fans are going to be like these gem fans. Try all the props until one of them feels right, or all the motors until one of them feels right. Just do it as a feel thing. Great stuff. So if we haven't got what's Mikey Dread? When I learnt the NJ Rainbow last week, feels so good. Awesome. Glad to hear that, man. I need to go onto your channel and check out some of your videos, see what you've been up to. You keep getting far too good. Every time I see you, you're getting way better than the last time. It's amazing. Love it though. Keep at it, man. It's great. And if any of you guys want me to check out your videos, just ask. I'll come and see what you're up to. I'll surprise you guys sometimes. I'll come and stalk you. Notorious Meerkat, I did tune in late, NJ, but it'd be cool if you had this regularly as possible. Try and perform a trick or two I learned from you tomorrow. Great. I think that's the idea of this, really, is just to try and get you guys thinking about maybe maneuvers that you're doing already, and maybe you just need a different approach. Like when we talked in the last one. If any of you haven't seen the last one, I think there's some really good information about cornering, orbiting as a flat orbit, and then reverse flight orbits. I did a bit talking about that, and also about altitude management with pitch as opposed to always relying on throttle. So there's some good stuff in that, and in my first comment in the video I've pinned is I've put the timestamps, so you don't have to listen to me waffle. I'll do the same with this one. I'll put timestamps for various things we've talked about. They'll give you a chance to talk to me about anything that you want to go over, or maneuvers you've seen in any of my real world flights that you want me to talk about, and we'll just keep going through it and my methods for stuff. But hopefully it's super useful. I will do some more stuff with stick cam out in the field, but I think for the tutorial side of things it's just easier because you get a nice overlay of what I'm doing. I know I could do that with black box. I'll have to pick one of my quads with a black box chip on it or an SD card slot, and then I could do an overlay using the black box to give you a nice view with real proper GoPro footage. So I will look to do that as well, I think, because it's nice to see all this stuff put into practice properly. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. It's really great to be doing this. You're all really supportive, and I love you all for it. And yeah, hopefully within the next week, maybe, I'm almost at 10,000 subscribers, which I'm super excited about reaching. That's a milestone. I don't know, I can't imagine 10,000 of you actually sitting down and listening to anything I have to say. So I appreciate you guys tuning in and all the positivity you bring to the channel. And yeah, I'll do everything I can to help, as always. As I said before, please do go check out Robbers Nails channel. He has 2 more Steam keys for Liftoff that he will be giving away soon. So go and sub him. Nice guy, and he's got loads of information on Liftoff and all the updates. Just go to his channel. He'll talk you through all the little things that are going on. He talks with the devs and knows a lot about what's going on behind the scenes. Also, other things, just quickly to mention, I do have an Instagram. If you're interested in knowing what is hitting my workbench before I do the reviews, Instagram is where to find me, and it's NJTechFPV is my Instagram handle. And yeah, I've got loads, and I put video snippets up, I put pictures up of things that are going to be on the bench soon, so you can get questions in about that stuff to me early if you want to. And then lastly, I do have a Patreon. If any of you guys really enjoy this stuff and you want to help me out with running the channel and doing this more full time, you can do that. Links are in the description for that. But as always, you guys are awesome. Thanks so much. And I'll see you all in the next one. Take care, everyone.